Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric Nerding series. Who is Nintendo suing or pursuing these days? And honestly, it's been a very busy month as far as Nintendo news is concerned, going after Ryujinx, going after channels doing emulation tutorials, even going after people just using Nintendo Switch emulation to play games and talk about them on the internet. There is a full court press against emulation on the Nintendo side of things, and I really do want to talk about it. Because when I initially started this series, I got a lot of comments saying that it was clickbait or I was fear-mongering, that I thought Nintendo would go this hard against emulation, yet here we are, everything I predicted has come to pass. Obviously, Yuzu is gone, the fork of Suyu is definitely dead in the water, and now Ryujinx is gone as well. And I get that this is all modern emulation, but it's very important to follow the thread and talk about why does this even matter in the first place. It is because emulation is crucially important to preservation and enjoying video games in the future. What happens tomorrow if Nintendo decides that they don't like NES emulation or Super Nintendo emulation? Sure, we talk about modern platforms like Nintendo Switch, but channels have also gotten strikes against them for talking about Wii U emulation. That is not a current gen platform that is on sale currently, but of course Nintendo still doesn't want you to know how to do something like this, and that is just an absolute bummer. And every single time Nintendo talks about emulation, they use the word illegal in front of it. Now, as of current US law, emulation is not illegal, but take me at my word. If Nintendo thinks that they can get an advantageous court case in front of the courts and they can get some sort of new precedent-setting ruling that emulation is illegal, they will absolutely 100% take their chances with this. And why does that matter in the first place? Well, we have to talk about the gaming industry and history of games in general. This is, if you don't watch my channel, a 3DO M2 arcade board. The 3DO M2 was a console that was cancelled after it was completed by Panasonic and it never saw the home market. But 5 arcade games for it were released. They're some of my favorites of all time. And this is a piece of hardware, if you're lucky enough, you might see one sell every 2 years. So what if you want to experience a game like Total Vice? What if you want to sit down and actually play this and you're not an idiot like me who collects everything original hardware and knows where to find them? If you can't emulate it, the reality is you're not going to get a chance to play this game. There are hundreds upon hundreds of video games out there that emulation is your only option to actually see them, experience them, and enjoy them. And it kind of gets into a moral question. What is the imperative of us to preserve video game history? If you don't own a game and you want to emulate it like Total Vice here, are you really hurting anybody because the game is no longer on sale? And this is main footage here. It is not running at full speed, but you can still experience what the 3DO M2 would have been like. And for 9,999 of 10,000 people, that's going to be the only way you're actually going to be able to experience this hardware in the first place. And showing you guys some side-by-sides, clearly it's not perfect, but it is something that you can understand, you can experience, you can play, and get a better grasp of what the 3DO M2 truly was. This is why emulation is important as a concept again, and it really is stressful that Nintendo keeps taking these things down. Sure, Nintendo Switch is on sale right now. You can go buy whatever game you want. Nothing's gotten too rare. The hardware is readily available. It really isn't that big of an issue, but I want you to think to the future. What's it going to be like in 30 to 40 years? I hope I'm still alive, and if I want to play a Nintendo Switch game then, am I going to be able to, or am I going to have to try to find a $500 cartridge and a rare piece of hardware because Nintendo has basically tried to make it so that you can't do it in the future? And before you comment down below and say, well, these emulators still exist online, I understand that they're never going to go away. This is talking about the ease of use moving forward. Because again, what if Nintendo decides that they want to go after emulator makers that do stuff like NES, Famicom, and Famicom Disk System games? Obviously, as a big gaming fan on the hardware side of things, I do love to collect this stuff, but what if my copy of Zelda here doesn't work tomorrow? What if that little magnetic disc inside of this plastic case stops reading and I have to emulate the game? I should be totally fine doing that because I have an original copy, and in another 20 to 30 years, even if you didn't have a copy, is it really that big of a deal? I guess that's kind of the question, and again, this is more of a moral argument than anything, because trust me, keeping a Famicom Disk System or Famicom Twin working and reading disc is no easy chore, and I know how to do it, and it even still fights me to this day. And And that is again why emulation is going to be so important moving forward. This hardware gets older every single day, more units break, and keeping all of this rare old hardware alive, although really the Twin Famicom isn't that rare, can be a full-time job and outside of most people's abilities. I taught myself how to repair all this stuff, and maybe you don't have the time or the energy. So when Nintendo continues to use the word illegal in emulation, I do think that they really want to just try to make it so that you can't emulate anything. The rights will only be to the rights holders to use emulation. I know that is just a prediction. It's as likely that it doesn't come to pass as it does, but I'm not trying to fearmonger here. I'm trying to talk about what a future without emulation would look like. Something like the Hyper Neo Geo 64, one of my favorite platforms of all time. Only one of the games ever got ported to PlayStation 1, and that port is absolutely inferior. And trust me, you are not going to find Hyper Neo Geo 64 hardware many places. Something like Beastbuster's Second Nightmare, literally one copy goes up for sale maybe every couple of years. I saw one sell in 2022, and a member of my Discord just bought a cabinet for it in Italy. If you want to just go out and buy this game today, you literally can't. It's not going to be possible. But via VAME emulation, you're going to be able to experience it. It runs almost at full speed. The sound is a little sketchy, but this is as good as it's going to get for the large majority of people. Again, I'm not recommending you go out and collect Hyper Neo Geo full sets. That's something I did, and that was probably even foolish for me to do. But if you actually want to experience games like this, emulation is going to be your resource. And as hardware gets older, that's going to become more and more true. And sure, for a lot of games, they're going to be common games, and the hardware on them is going to be common as well. If you want to go play Crash Bandicoot on PlayStation 1 right now, you can pick up a disc. It's not going to be that expensive. You can pick up a PlayStation 1 and hopefully you get a good laser, but trust me, they're all going to die in the future. There's going to be a future in which if you don't modify your PlayStation 1 hardware, 99 out of 100 units just aren't going to read. Something like Fatal Fury Wild Ambition here on the arcade board is amazing. The PlayStation 1 port is absolutely janky. Can you experience it? Yes, but you're going to come away with the wrong conclusion, that it's a terrible game, and it definitely isn't. But if you want to play Hyper Neo Geo 64 right now and play Fatal Fury Wild Ambition, I'm assuming you're going to have to use MAME for it. And that is really why, again, this is so important for the future. Everything common is going to become rare in decades to come because they're going to continue to break. Games will definitely still be out there, but maybe the hardware to run them won't be that prevalent. Now, I know it's not a guarantee, but again, if Nintendo thinks they can do something additionally to keep you from emulating anything, they are going to try to do it. It would have to be a very specialized case, and they would have to be very confident they would get the decision they want. But that isn't outside the realm of possibilities, and if anything is proven in the last 2 years, it's that Nintendo is going to keep doing these things over and over again. And imagine a future in which emulating hardware, even if you own it, is declared not legal. What would that future look like? Because again, as far as Nintendo is concerned, they think emulation is a horrible thing unless they're using it on their own hardware. And it's painfully obvious as the day is long, they do not like it. And what about something like the Nintendo DS? Again, a very common platform, but I own a DS, I own a copy of this game. What is so bad about me playing it on something like the Steam Deck? Absolutely nothing. I am harming nobody. I've done everything right and should still have the ability to do so in the future. And think of other makers. There's Sega Model 2, Sega Model 3 emulation, Dreamcast, Sega Saturn, and has Sega ever said a peep about this? Absolutely not. They rarely do anything. Nintendo is definitely spearheading this operation, but it's not like they could ever get a court case that just declares emulating Nintendo consoles is illegal. But what about something like DuckStation that actually helps new audiences get to modern games in a retro way? If you didn't grow up with Ridge Racer Type R4 on PS1, you might think it's a little antiquated, but if you play it on DuckStation and enhance it, you're gonna think it's more of a modern experience, and these games actually get more audiences. Or even stuff like Konami Viper, where the emulation is absolutely not playable, but you can still experience it. All of these games never got home console ports, and if you want to find these games today, I wish you the best of luck. You can hunt for them for years, like I did here with Code 1 and Dispatch. I had to trade with somebody who lives in Germany. We both had games the other person wanted, we made it work. But you're not going to go to those lengths to play a game that is that hard to obtain, but you might still want to check it out. That is why emulation matters, and that is why it is so incredibly scary as to what Nintendo is doing here today, because they do think as a corporate culture emulation is unacceptable unless they are using it. And I assure you it's not going to be easy, but if they think that there's a case that they can put in front of a court that'll end up with a precedent saying that emulating original hardware is a non-permissible or illegal use, they will do it, I guarantee it, and that's not a future I want to live in. But short of that, that's what we're talking about today. We're done, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.